All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. Today is February 22nd, and welcome to this week's weather briefing. I'm Christopher Tate, and I'm pleased to be joined by a professor who is no stranger to these weather briefings and is no stranger to, well, really anybody in the department since he interacts with so many of us on a very frequent basis. Pleased to welcome Dr. Jon Nese to present this week's weather briefing. And without further ado, Dr. Nese, I will let you take it away.
Thanks, Christopher. It's always a pleasure and an honor to do these weather briefings. For those of you who don't know who Ken Reeves was, we graduated together from Penn State in 1983. He went on to a long career at AccuWeather, died tragically in an accident in 2012. Ken was always very much in favor of a synergy between the various weather organizations in town. And this weather briefing was one of those things that he really enjoyed being a part of. And so we've named the briefing in honor of Ken to keep his memory alive and in his honor. So some headlines to kind of get us started. We have this fast moving kind of high impact system this morning. And then relatively speaking, the rest of the work week looks pretty calm weather-wise. Could be a couple snow showers mainly tomorrow morning, and then maybe even a rain shower later Wednesday. But I think one headline has to be, for most of Pennsylvania, Wednesday looks to be the first above average day in more than a month, and likely the warmest day in more than 2 months. So to me, that is worthy of mention. Then it turns colder Thursday and Friday, a couple degrees below average, but at least some sunshine every day. And after some of what we've been through in terms of storminess, particularly, actually, I think this week, once we get past this morning, is quite nice. I think it would be blasphemous to not at least spend a couple minutes talking about the historic week last week. I've stolen some tweets from the Weather Prediction Center. 79 all-time cold records set last week, which is pretty remarkable. And some of the stations at which these records were set have data going back at least 75 years. So certainly a week of cold that we're not going to forget anytime soon. Storms are born from temperature gradients. And so the tweet on the left demonstrates how about a week ago, the temperature difference between Minneapolis and Miami was of order 95 degrees. And so it should be no surprise that in between, where you have that large temperature gradient, you get all these winter storm warnings. And record was set last week. I suspect some of you are aware of it, with about 1.6 million square kilometers with active winter storm warnings, which had broken a record set about 15 years ago. Here, the chart on the left shows the number of hours in that 8-day period, February 12th to 19th, when temperatures were below freezing. Pretty remarkable. The deepest purple there is 168 hours, and that's an 8-day period. The 12th through the 19th only has 192 hours in it. So that's pretty remarkable that far south. And then lastly, the one on the right shows that record set last Wednesday with snow cover 73% of the CONUS, greatest extent on record in the database, which went back to 2003. Bring it a little bit closer to home. I think when I do this briefing in February, I always show these charts. What I've done here is some research unpublished where I've simply counted the number of double-digit snowstorms in major Pennsylvania cities. And then stratified it by virtue of when the snowstorm occurred. So referring to the diagram in the upper left, what you're looking at, there have been about 85 10-inch snowstorms in state, 10-inch or more snowstorms in State College in the period of record. And when you stratify them by the half month in which they occurred, the peak really stands out. It's early March. So I like to say in central Pennsylvania, it ain't over till it's over in terms of big snowstorms. Again, 10 inches is an arbitrary choice on my part, but I think once a snowstorm gets to double digits, people sit up and take notice. If you contrast that with the Pittsburgh, which is below it, bottom left, the median date there is January 25th. In other words, half of these bigger snowstorms occur before January 25th. Half of them have occurred after, but the median date in State College is the 13th of February, in large part because of that peak in the first half of March. There have even been some very notable snowstorms in State College in the second half of March. So generally speaking, I don't let my guard down in terms of snowstorms in State College until you get the end of March. Typical climatology, State College is 39.23 right now. Things are changing quickly, though, as you know, with the increasing sun angle. We're going to be at 43.26 in just 2 weeks. So those 30-year averages, which, by the way, I suspect many of you know, will be updated this year. The word is it'll be sometime around May, June, or July. The new normals will come out. My National Weather Service colleagues can correct me on that if I'm wrong. But these numbers are going up at the rate of about 2 degrees per week now. As far as sunrise and sunset, you can see the numbers there. The sun is now rising 13 degrees south of east and setting 13 degrees south of west as we work our way toward the equinox, when the sun will essentially rise due east and set due west. And for those of you who are counting, we're gaining about 2.5 minutes of daylight per day, and I am definitely counting. Okay, so we'll come back to the forecast. Let me switch sources on you here and go over to some graphics so we can talk about the weather. Christopher and I did this earlier. There's a bit of latency, but hopefully when I speak about a graphic, you will be seeing that graphic on your screen. And please interrupt me at any point here. Certainly if I say something incorrect, or if you just have a point you want to make with some of these graphics. So on my screen anyway, the numbers on the upper left graphic here are a little fuzzy. I'm going to go ahead and blow this up. Hopefully you've seen it in large on your screen. These are the current hour departures from average. And I show this in large part because our flow much of this week is going to be westerly or west-northwesterly. And if you look in the northern plains and the northern Rockies and the upper Midwest, temperatures there are well above average. And so when we go instead to a different way to look at this, this is modeled, but these are 2-meter temperature anomalies valid this morning at 12Z. So although this is a 6-hour forecast, you can kind of take it as an analysis. The point I'd like to make here is look at Canada. Temperatures at the surface well above average, well into Canada. So even on a northwest flow, it's just not going to be cold here, at least not remarkably cold. And in fact, as I already mentioned, Wednesday looks to be our warmest day in many places in 2 months. Let me just walk you through kind of the progression of things over the next few days. This is the GEFS 500 millibar chart, which I hope is big enough on your screen for you to see. And this is the ensemble. So you're looking at an ensemble mean. So again, it's a mean, but I think it tells the story of today. First of all, this is 12Z today. 500 millibar trough to our west. We're getting actually pretty good upper level divergence right now. I'll prove that to you in a moment. Some decent upper level divergence adding to the lift. That 500 millibar wave goes by tonight. And then actually another one comes in tomorrow. Little short wave passes to our north. It'll be more moisture starved and it will lack any surface support. That goes by. We get into a short wave ridge Tuesday night, which sets us up for that relatively warm day Wednesday. And then another 500 millibar trough approaches, sort of the bulk of it passes to our north, but we should get a cold frontal passage in here Wednesday night into Thursday, and then it turns a little bit cooler. Always nice to start with the National Weather Service watches, warnings, and advisories. It's amazing how 6 weeks ago, when I picked this date, I was able to pin down what may end up being the most boring week weather-wise of 2021 so far, but somehow I managed to choose it. What you see in the Pacific Northwest, there's an avalanche warning in there, a couple winter storm warnings, and some high wind warnings. But generally speaking, compared to recent weeks, this is a very quiet watch, warning, and advisory map. Here's the radar loop, courtesy of College of DuPage. I got to admit to my National Weather Service colleagues, I have not yet warmed up to the new radar product yet. I'm sure eventually I will, but I decided to go with this one today. You can see the area of snow moving through Pennsylvania. The actual cold front still back in Ohio. This broken line of echoes stretching from just east of Cleveland to just east of Cincinnati is the actual cold front. If we close in on the Pittsburgh radar here, the sort of back edge of this is still back around Pittsburgh, where it's warm enough actually for it to be raining, not snowing. So we still have, an hour or two of what's going outside to bring this event to kind of a close. I saw the National Weather Service mention the HREF in their discussion this morning. This is the high resolution ensemble forecast. And they used it in the context of this product, which is the probability of 1 inch or more snowfall rates. And notice there's some yellow and some there, particularly as this line gets east of here. That's a 70, 80, 90% probability of 1 inch per hour snowfall rates with this system moving through. The satellite imagery, at least the visible imagery, Christopher mentioned there might be some latency with this, so I'll wait a second to make sure that you can see it. Can actually see the back edge of the clouds stretching from just east of Erie into south central Ohio. The taller clouds are projecting their shadow onto the lower clouds to their west, so you can kind of see a little bit of a cloud shadow right in here. And then for most of Ohio and Indiana, the clouds are of the lower stratus variety. So here's your surface map, courtesy of SPC. This is the surface pressure. And you can see a fairly pronounced trough in which that front is embedded, front once, as you will see. So a decent trough means you've got decent low-level convergence going on with this system. So you can see over much of Pennsylvania, winds are from the south. You get back in Ohio, the winds shift to the west. So this 90-degree shift in wind direction brings with it some surface convergence, and you can kind of see that. Notice how the National Weather Service analyzes this situation. Sort of a warm front, cold front situation here with a bit of an occlusion beginning to form. And when you look at the station models, the surface temperatures actually bear this out. I mean, we're still in the 20s in most of Pennsylvania, except in western Pennsylvania. You get to Pittsburgh, it's 37. So they're kind of in that warm sector. It's 40 in Erie with a south wind. And then you get farther west in Ohio behind the cold front, temperatures go back down in the 30s. So you kind of have this warm wedge going on in this narrow zone between the cold front and the warm front. Now, the NBM set up to 37 today. I don't know, I'm a little skeptical. These situations where it looks like a warm front's going to go through and then I don't know. I'm going to take us above freezing today, but I'm not quite sure I believe we're going to get to 37 today. But it should go above freezing this afternoon. I want to go back to the SPC plot. I like to look at their upper air plots and their temperature advection. The reds here indicate 850 millibar warm advection. And so you could argue that this event this morning is partly driven by strong low-level warm advection overrunning the core that's in place. So you got a little bit of overrunning going on there. You have the surface convergence associated with the fronts. And then just to have a little bit of fun, this is a product from a faculty member at Embry-Riddle University in Florida. I don't know Sean Milrad, but he does have a synoptic meteorology textbook out. Anyway, he has this product. What you're looking at is a 500 millibar chart here. Remember, the ideal situation to get vertical motion is surface convergence, upward motion. If you want upward motion in a column, ideally you want some surface convergence and upper level divergence. Remember from synoptics, I know many of you took synoptics, the so-called bowstring model. If you have surface convergence and upper level divergence, you will get upward motion in the column, and the omega profile will look like a bowstring, and it will maximize at the level of non-divergence. So what is being plotted here inside these blue contours is essentially upper level divergence. It's really cyclonic vorticity advection by the geostrophic wind, but one can interpret, notice the vorticity maximum is in yellow here. Ahead of the vorticity maximum, you have upper level, you have positive vorticity advection, which is affiliated with, in a general sense, with upper level divergence. So this is at 18Z today. So this is 1 o'clock this afternoon Eastern time. You have upper level divergence in a wide area stretching north to south with Pennsylvania in the bullseye. We already know we have low level convergence because we have the surface fronts. So if you look at a sounding from the HER, this is valid at 15Z. So this is essentially valid in central Pennsylvania this hour. Look at the omega profile on the left. It looks like a bowstring with the maximum upward motion centered around 600 millibars, which is more or less usually around the level of non-divergence. So I think you've got some really nice synoptics going on this morning with this system that can be directly related to things you learned in Meteo 411. That's about as close as you're going to get to a bowstring on the omega profile. But it doesn't stick around very long. Another point I'd like to make, for those of you who like to play the dendritic growth zone game, there's very good motion in the so-called dendritic growth zone, which good upward motion with saturation in the dendritic growth zone tends to lead to the efficient production of dendrites, which tend to pile up, provide a relatively high snow to liquid ratio at the surface. The Wpc Super Ensemble, which I like to use, this is that ensemble of about 65 different models where they pick some of the members of the European ensemble, the GEFS, the HER, the Canadian ensemble, the NBM is in here, some of the ensemble members from the HREF. The liquid equivalent from this event in the mean is a little more than a quarter inch. It'll be interesting when we get the observation back tomorrow morning. I've already measured, and this was an hour ago, 2 inches of snow at my house. My suspicion looking outside is that we already have another ½ inch to inch, and we're probably going to end up with, at least here in Bolesburg, 3 to 4 inches. So it'll be interesting to see what the liquid equivalent is tomorrow morning. I was able to sweep the snow off of my porch with a broom this morning, so it was very light. My suspicion is that the snow to liquid ratio today may end up being, I don't know, 13 to 1, 15 to 1, but we'll have to wait and see. Tomorrow. One other product that's kind of unique that I wanted to show. This is from the website of a Penn State grad, a gentleman, Dr. Bob Hart, faculty at Florida State. He was one of Jenny Evans's students. Bob has a website called coolweather.com, COOLWX.com. You should check it out if you have a chance. He has these really nice time on the x-axis, pressure on the y-axis charts. You are looking at the Omega forecast for State College based on the HER model. This happens to be the 10Z run this morning, so it's an old run. But the blues here, blues and greens are upward motion. And then the oranges and yellows are sinking motion. So you can see this pulse of good upward motion going through State College right now. Eventually, we switch to a lot of subsidence later, and that'll probably mix down some strong winds from above. So the wind will probably turn gusty later on as it switches to more of a westerly wind once we get behind the cold front. So walking you through then the next couple days using the E-wall. So this is one of those 6-panel plots. So I'll pause this at certain critical moments. So this is 18Z today. Pretty strong Vort max on the 500 millibar chart, surface front going through, 700 millibar and 850 millibar layers near at or near saturation. So that goes through. Still a lot of low-level clouds tonight. And then here comes the next Vort max in that northwesterly flow. This is tomorrow at 12Z. So there's a pretty max, but there's really not a surface front with it. So, and plus things have dried out. Notice you're not quite as moist at 700 and 850 tomorrow. So I think this next Vort max goes through tomorrow morning without a lot of fanfare, maybe a snow shower. And then that goes through and some surface ridging builds in for Tuesday night and into Wednesday. And then here comes the next disturbance, kind of a clipper that passes to our north. And that'll drag a cold front through late in the day on Thursday. And then thicknesses drop behind that. So we have a colder, though not cold, day on Thursday. And possible 700 millibars and even 850 drying out a little bit. We get a little bit of sunshine. And in fact, if we go back to that super ensemble, most of the rest of the week, this is liquid equivalent, the mean is pretty flat. There's a little bit of excitement maybe for a snow shower tomorrow morning here, and then maybe even a rain shower on Wednesday night. But generally speaking, the rest of the work week is pretty quiet when it comes to sensible weather. And then lastly, I just wanted to show, should I be reading the chat here? Let's see. Okay, no, yes. Christopher, I guess you're handling that.
Well, when you were on your, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, when I was on one of those graphics, I guess somebody wasn't seeing the bottom. I'll be happy to share that.
It was the cool
weather.
Was
that the cool weather graphic?
Yeah, if you could just zoom out 1 or 2 notches.
Yeah, let me find Bob Hart's page again. Yeah. So the x-axis there is only 18 hours long, because that's output from one of the HER. So I would always encourage folks to look at the NBM. Now I hope I say this correctly so as not to mischaracterize what's going on with these products, but the National Weather Service is slowly but surely moving away from MOS to the NBM, the National Blend of Models. And so I think all of us have to become more familiar with the NBM, of which MOS is one of the inputs. MOS is an input to the NBM. but the two are certainly not equivalent. The NBM takes us up to 37 today. I've already expressed I just don't know that that happens. I see us maybe getting just above freezing, and maybe we get to 35 late in the day today. And then the cold front goes through. 30 tonight seems reasonable. I'm not sure I believe 39 tomorrow, especially if it stays cloudy most of the day. So I'm going to go a couple degrees under that. And the 47 on Wednesday, notice one neat feature of the NBM is they give you a standard deviation on the temperature forecast. So that 4 right there represents the standard deviation on that high temperature. So no surprise, there's uncertainty at longer forecast times, but I also do think there's some uncertainty about how warm we get on Wednesday. But quite frankly, I'll take anything in the 40s. So to close up then, and to send you off to the rest of your day, here's my sense of the forecast. Rest of today, snow ending as flurries or even drizzle by early afternoon as the temperature goes above freezing at the surface. So I don't think we have to worry about any freezing drizzle. Total accumulation looks to me to be 3 to 4 inches. Winds go from southerly to westerly this afternoon. And then mostly cloudy tonight. Temperature doesn't drop that far. And another mostly cloudy day tomorrow. Maybe a snow shower in the morning. 37 might be too high tomorrow. I think I'm still 2 degrees below the NBM. And then some sun on Wednesday, then some increasing clouds as that next front approaches, and it'll be milder. I'll go with mid 40s on Wednesday. Then cooler and dry Thursday and Friday. Knock the temperatures back 5 to 10 degrees, but hey, I'll be able to walk my dog, which is at this point the most important aspect of my day. So I've used up almost all of my time. This has been fun. I hope you learned something. And I'd love to entertain some questions or comments or corrections.
If anyone has anything they'd like to say, do put it in the Q&A or the chat. Both of those are open. I will say, and I've been neglecting to mention this in weeks past, I believe by default, Zoom is directing chat messages to panelists only. So if you don't mind everybody else seeing your message, make sure to change that to all panelists and attendees, just so that everyone can see what all we're chatting about there in the chat, I guess.
I'm supposed to do that?
No, that's for the 10 folks who are tuned in.
That's for anybody who posts a message, right?
Yes. As panelists, we can see everything, but the attendees can only see those that include them.
Interesting. Okay.
Get the Q&A up.
I don't think we have anyone on from the Weather Service to correct my mistakes. If I said anything incorrect about the Weather Service.
We've got a message in from Tyler Danzig. He says, a few long-range ensembles are hinting at a large warm-up by mid-March. Do you have any comment on that? And in addition, do you see any March snowstorms?
I'm skeptical of this time of year beyond 7 days. And as far as March snowstorms go, as I said at the beginning, the peak in State College climatology, big snowstorms, is the first 15 days of March. Climatology never won any forecasting contests, but we've already had 2 10-inch snowstorms in State College this winter. There's plenty of time left for a third. But I would be skeptical of anything in the numerical models beyond 7 days right now. That would be my answer. And no, I don't know what city we're using in 415 tomorrow because the pattern is terrible. It is going to be slim pickings tomorrow, which is unfortunate.
Just send us over to Europe or something.
Well, that's a possibility. Though Europe is harder to verify. Or maybe Alaska. Tomorrow might be an Alaska day.
Oof.
Take that one.
That'll give me
Take that one to the
flashbacks.
bank.
Yeah, that'll give me flashbacks to Weather Challenge last semester. Fun times trying to forecast for Juneau for 2 weeks.
Maybe we'll go to Juneau.
Oh boy, this is going to be fun. All right, well, there is a Q&A in here. Dr. Young's got a suggestion. You see that, Dr. Nese?
I see South Africa, La Nina is hitting the place hard. I will take George's word for that. I am unaware. Is it a drought there? I'd have to do a quick Google search. Certainly, okay, so it's not a drought, it's the opposite of a drought. Well, I will state for the United States, this has not been the temperature and precipitation patterns of the last 3 months have not been La Nina-ish in the United States. So one may be able to attribute the heavy rains in South Africa to a La Nina connection, but one can certainly not do so in the United States because it's almost been, well, the temperature pattern has been opposite what La Nina would suggest in the CONUS.
All right, well, if there is not anything else, I'm not seeing any motion in either forum, then I suppose we can go on and close things out for this week. Dr. Nese, thank you very much for this week's weather briefing.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. This weather briefing and all other weather briefings will be archived on the Campus Weather Service YouTube page. That's youtube.com/Campus Weather Service. And I look forward to having all of you join us next week as National Weather Service meteorologist John Bangoff will be joining us from his abode somewhere in Centre County, or maybe from the office. We'll just have to wait and see. That will be same time, same place, 10:15 a.m. Eastern. We'll see you all next week. Have a great week, everybody.